right, welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, the Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise TD3. Jimmy, it is Wednesday night, March the 1st, 2023. And if it's Wednesday night,
That means it's Black Men Speak. So let's give a big shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music, also to For Us Films in our own studio, providing our virtual studio that helps bring the show to you. And with that being said, Tom, I know we have a busy schedule. We have a big
yes,
surprise at the end of the show, a treat for everyone. To bring some cultural awareness to the show. Actually, something, even though everybody's familiar with the city of New Orleans, this little gem you may not be familiar with. But we're going to bring it to you here on Black Man Speak. So
yes,
just
sir.
hang on to the end.
Yes, sir. Jimmy, we are very much looking forward to tonight's show. And to everyone out there, it is March the 1st. So happy Women's History Month. This is the
Yes, it's
first
Women's
day
History Month.
of Women's History Month. March has been proclaimed to be Women's History Month. And so I'm sure, Jimmy, as we have in the past, will highlight a lot of women who have made significant impacts, not just in this country, but in the world, Jimmy.
Yes. So yeah, we have a packed show, a lot of stuff to go through. So with that being said, Tom, let's get started.
All right, Jimmy, let's start off with something that I felt was pretty awesome, man. A couple of days ago, I was doing some research and got some information on the esteemed Howard University that has actually,
Howard University in the house. Yes.
yes, Jimmy, they have won the swim championship at the NEC conference, Northeastern Conference, of which they are an associate member. And Jimmy, this is groundbreaking. Matter of fact, I was not aware of this, but Howard is the only HBCU with a swim program among 104, I believe, HBCUs that we have across the country, number one. And number two, Jimmy, they are the only all-black swim team, including all of their swimmers and their support, the coaches and the support staff.
So Tom, we may see another Michael Phelps come out of Howard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Matter of
So
fact, it was pretty interesting. They had I think their what they call their conference championships in Ohio over this past week, Jimmy. But in addition to winning the overall team championship, they have, I guess, made history as the first championship in 34 years, which is quite a long time. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, they are the only HBCU with a swim team. Jimmy, they had a couple of individual highlights. One of their swimmers is actually a qualifier for the Olympic trials.
all
He
right, okay.
broke the meet record in the 200-meter individual medley and was named the NEC Outstanding Swimmer. There was another young man who was named the Outstanding Diver for the 47-member squad that they had on their team. So, I mean, this is outstanding news. And I was doing some research on this, Jimmy. They said that out of the 295,000 competitive swimmers over the last year or so, that only 1.5% of them are black.
That doesn't surprise me, Tom. So, and we want to give a big shout out to Howard University for their accomplishment, Tom. But also, we need to see other HBCUs uh, developing swim teams and participating also.
Yes, Jimmy, and it's kind of interesting because I was listening to a video with one of the swimmers on there, and he was just saying how few African Americans that there are involved in the sport of swimming, and obviously when you look at a lot of our HBCUs, a lot of them are constrained financially as it pertains to providing a broad array of different types of sports. And I'm pretty sure that Howard probably had to pull a lot of strings to make this happen. But this, I believe, is the second year that their coaching staff was voted to be the best coaching staff, I think,
Okay.
at least within their conference. Jimmy. And hopefully this promotes more young people within our communities to get into the sport of swimming, Jimmy. I mean, I remember growing up, they say there isn't a lot of support in our communities for the sport of swimming, Jimmy, but I do remember growing up and going to the YMCA when I was real little. My dad took me there to learn how to swim.
Well, Tom, you mentioned financial constraints, and all I can say on that one is the quote former President Barack Hussein Obama: "Elections have consequences." With
Yes.
that being said, Tom, let's move on.
All right, Jimmy. Well, we will talk a little bit about politics here. So, um,
Uh-oh.
you know,
Don't get me started, Tom.
we're not going to get too deep into this, but
Okay.
many of you may know that Lauren Lightfoot in one election in the last term as the mayor of Chicago. And I believe, if my memory serves me correct, she was the first woman to be elected mayor of Chicago and
Yes,
also
she
the
was.
first openly gay woman, or I don't know if that's person, to be elected mayor of Chicago. But
Well, there
unfortunately,
may have been some in the past time they were in the closet, but
yeah, but
openly
she's
gay,
open
yes.
openly. But she has lost her bid for a re-election to the office of mayor, which is kind of odd, Jimmy, because I mean, when you think about it, if you look at the history of this, you go back to the Dailies. I think John Daly
Yes.
was in office maybe 21 years. His son was there for about
Oh,
21.
that was a machine, Tom.
Exactly. And even if you look at, the more recent Rahm Emanuel, I mean, it's very rare that a mayor in Chicago isn't reelected because the Chicago political machine is very strong, and
Yes, it
Chicago
is.
is a pretty deep blue city, and so this is a peculiarity. It is an anomaly because she wasn't elected again, Jimmy. But look, doing the research and reading the tea leaves, there was a lot of issues there, Jimmy. Of course, with
Tom, there was
crime.
one major issue. It was called crime.
Yes,
And I'm sorry. I don't, wish her ill but our politics, my politics and her politics don't agree. That's obvious. But there's no way in the world that you can hold your head up when the crime rate is that high in that city and you didn't do more to stomp it down. Even to call in the National Guard, curfew. I mean, even to try some things that maybe will get challenged in court as being unconstitutional, but to try everything possible, stop and frisk, um, to curve that crime rate downward, Tom. And I would think, like you said, with the Democrat election machine operating in Chicago, it is almost unheard of not to get reelected with the amount of money that city generates, the number of contracts you can hand out, the number of unions they have there, for it not to get. Tom, she only got 17% of the vote
yeah,
of the.
that's pretty bad. That's
That
pretty
is
bad.
pretty bad, Tom.
And strangely enough, as I was looking through, some of the history on this, it got so bad that she used a pretty, what I would consider to be exotic tactic, where, from my understanding, they raised bridges in certain parts of the city to quarantine some of the neighbors from crime. And I don't know what areas of the city this was.
No, Tom, that okay. Those raised bridges were to keep certain people in certain areas and protect the more
Exactly.
wealthy sit
Of
areas.
course.
So
Exactly.
yeah, it wasn't like they were protecting the people who were victims of these crimes. They were
Oh, I
doing
know.
their best to keep the crime from
They
spreading into the
want to make
wealthy
sure it
areas.
didn't spill over into the wealthy areas of the city.
Yes.
I would agree. I would agree. But you know, obviously they have two other folks who are now running for mayor, Paul Vallis and Brandon Johnson. One, of course, has the support of the Chicago Teachers Union. I believe that's Brandon Johnson, and the other,
Yes,
uh,
I think he was a former
the
president of the school system there. I think the president of the school board. We have a different term here in Texas, but yeah, they that's one of them. Then the other one that I think is endorsed more by the police
yeah,
and
the
other
police.
city workers. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be very interesting. Obviously, there'll be I don't want to say new sheriff in town, but a new mayor in town pretty soon, Jimmy. And, Chicago has some very deep political ties when it comes to politics, Jimmy. And so this will be a very interesting one to watch for sure. So definitely keep your ears and your
Well,
eyes
Tom,
peeled.
I just hope that whoever's elected actually does something does something to help protect the people of that city. I mean, the folks there who kids are being shot up every day, every weekend. It is now even not even imaginable to keep up with these numbers of the number of shootings just on the weekends. They don't even report Monday through Friday. Those numbers would be too high if they did the whole week. Just the weekend shootings. I mean, they average 60, 70 shootings a weekend, Tom, with 15 to 20 people dying from those gunshot wounds. That is way too high. That is crazy that people live under those kind of conditions and don't get out. And we talk about what happened in East Palestine with the chemical spill and the burn off. I submit that you get that in Chicago every week, every day of the week. I don't understand why these people don't pack up and leave that city. It may be financial, but whoever the next mayor, I hope they do a lot more to protect their citizenry because the people there deserve better. And if they voted Lori Light, I call her Lighthead, but they voted her out of office, Tom, it's because she did a lousy job addressing crime. She could
Well,
have, if she had taken care of that, it wouldn't matter what else she did. Potholes, sewer system, trash pickup, everything else could have been lousy as hell if she just addressed the crime issue. And I'm sure she could have breezed to a re-election. But with crime stats that high, oh no, you can't even raise your head up and say that you were even in the game when your stats are that bad.
well, Jimmy, on top of that, it looks like she lost support of a lot of very strong political alliances. Jimmy, unfortunately, she had kind of a different style when it came to her politics and being somewhat abrasive. And knowing some people in the Chicago area, you have to have very strong alliances. It has very deep political and racial divisions in the city of Chicago, and so you do have to have some very strong alliances. And it looks like, in this case, Jimmy, she lost out on the areas that would have helped her carry over.
Well,
But
Tom, there's
before
nothing
we
wrong with being
move
strong.
forward,
There's
before we
nothing
move
wrong with
forward,
being tough,
mhm,
but you need to be tough for the right reasons and for the
mhm,
right things. And she
mhm.
wasn't. I mean, she was a
Well,
lousy mayor. And basically she's losing her job because she was a lousy mayor. So um, and I think everybody recognized that more needed to be done, and she just wasn't getting it done.
gotcha. Well, we want to thank everyone who is joining us. Miss D. Bowman, Chicago's not in the top 20 in crime statistics. You're spouting propaganda. We want to thank you for joining us tonight. And again, for everyone who is on right now, if you have not done so, subscribe, number one. Number two, hit that like button. And then number three, share this information with other folks. So with that being said, we do have the phone line open. So if you would like to call in and make your voice be heard, the phone number to tonight's show, if we do have that, there we go. We do have that 972-497-2280. That phone line is open as long as we're on the night. And then, of course, you can also get in on the chat as well. So we will see how things go. Now, we will go across to the other side of the country, Jimmy, because there is now a new president that has been elected in the country of Nigeria, which has the largest population in Africa, the largest country in Africa, the continent,
Yes.
with about 230 million people, I believe. But also, Jimmy, I think from some statistics, it is one of the largest countries by population in the
Oh
world.
yeah, in the world,
That's
yes.
the sixth largest population on the globe, and that is behind China, behind India, behind the United States, and I believe Indonesia at a minimum.
Yes, Tom. And for me, um, so I was happy to hear about the election, but I was even happier to hear that there wasn't a great deal of violence. There wasn't, a lot of people, saying that the election was rigged. So it seemed like it was a fair election. I'm glad
Well, that
I mean,
depends.
there are pockets here and there, Tom, but it's nothing like it was in the past.
Yeah. Well,
So
if we look at the past, that is relative, Jimmy, because unfortunately you're talking about. I mean, they've only been having what they call free and fair democratic elections since 1999, and then, up until and to a certain degree, somewhat after that, they've known their transition of power was by coup d'état.
Bob with the gun, Tom.
exactly. And
Whoever
so
had the biggest guns and the most bullets is generally how the transition happened. And so you're right. A lot of African nations, to include Nigeria, have not sort of
had democratic elections
exercised,
for that long.
yeah, been a democratic process for very long. So this is still a new experience, relatively new when you're talking about a nation that's old. But still, they have to start somewhere. And like I said, I'm glad to see that they're at least on the road. And congratulations to the nation for their election.
Right. And the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, of the ruling All Progressive Congress Party, actually was is the new president. He received about 36% of the total vote, about 8 million, which doesn't seem a lot when you look at a
Yes.
population of that size. But their system is a little bit different than what we're accustomed to in the United States. He had two primary challengers. Um, Atiku Abubakar of the opposition People's Democratic Party, and then a third leading candidate, Peter Obi, who actually got a strong following from the younger vote and a lot of other fringe voters who feel that they are underrepresented. But the president elect, Mr. Tinubu, is 70 years old, very wealthy, powerful businessman. And the challenge is going to be being able to
Pull
uh,
it together. Yes.
pull a lot of these.
Unify the government. But Tom, let's say this: when you have a democracy that young, um, you 1999. You're only really still is only talking about a generation, less than a generation of time.
Correct, correct.
So it doesn't surprise me that the people participating in the election is not larger. But on top of that, let's just say, I was going to say, I'm glad you're here to get those names right, because if it was left up to me, man, those names would have been jacked up. So
And,
uh,
and Jimmy, this is the other thing. Think about this. He is only the fifth democratically elected
elected,
president since 1999 when they started having open and free elections to everyone. So, I mean, if you look at it from that context, this is very interesting. Only the fifth democratically elected within this regime of what we call open, free democratic elections. He is the former governor also of the Lagos state, or the state of Lagos, within Nigeria, not to be confused with the city of Lagos in Nigeria. So, Jimmy, he's got his work ahead of him because he's going to have to pull those factions together. And a lot of the segmentation, Jimmy, is not just geographically, but also, by different cultural groups as well. And obviously, there were a lot of people who felt that the election, was pretty seriously rigged, and there were a lot of issues of concern. There are a lot of folks who are calling for a fresh vote, but that's not going to happen in this case, Jimmy. So he's going to have to pull this together. There's a lot of poverty when depending on what resource you're looking at, Jimmy. They say that upwards close to half of the country, some say even more than that, are living in some degree of poverty and
yes,
or being
they
poverty.
are a very wealthy nation, though. They have lots
Or
of resources
you are
on the
correct.
whole. It's just that you have to apply those resources to helping your country, not lining your pockets, not buying bigger, better guns. So,
And And Jimmy, that is a big one there because unfortunately, in a lot of our African countries, 54 of which there are mineral wealth,
mhm.
highly wealthy countries in terms of mineral wealth. In Nigeria, oil. You go to these countries, but on the other hand, a lot of those natural resources are exported out of the country to other countries that we'll just call Western, where they are refined, they are made into a finished product, and then sold back to the people where they got the resources from at an exorbitant price that they
Yes,
paid for.
but you buy your natural resources, refine them, and sell them back to you at a profit.
And
So
so,
that's the export methodology that drives capitalism. So what's important is that you have to learn to take your natural resources and develop them yourself. That's a secret here.
Gotcha. So we want to welcome a couple of other folks who have joined us. In addition to Ms. D. Bowman, we have Mr. Edward Willis. We want to thank you for
Brother
joining us.
Willis in the house.
Good deal. And we also have Ms. A. Brown. So we want to thank all of you for joining us this evening and contributing to the conversation. Nigeria is the largest economy on the continent of Africa. You're exactly right. Chicago's murder rate is lower than Detroit, Milwaukee, and St. Louis. Ms. Lightfoot's problem is a lack of leadership. Um, Interesting conversation. Hey,
Tom, not just a lack of leadership, which is correct, but we don't hear about the murders of Detroit, Milwaukee, and St. Louis because they're smaller metropolitan. They're sort of larger, smaller cities. Chicago, I believe, is 4 to 6 million in population. It's a pretty large city, one of the largest in the country, and we do get that murder rate, and not just as a percentage of the population, which would make the murder rate pretty small in Chicago, but we get the raw numbers. And so when you're getting 50, 60 shootings every weekend, 12, 15 people dying every weekend, and you're bombarded with that, then you can talk numbers and rates all you want to. There's just a lot of people being shot and killed. And for the mayor not to address that is a lack of leadership.
yeah, it is a challenge, Jimmy. So we certainly hope because I have we have a lot of folks. I know folks who are from Chicago who live in Chicago. My paternal grandmother spent most of her adult life until she went to go see Gloria. May God rest her soul in 2019. So a lot of history, a lot of culture. We think about the Great Migration. Chicago was a significant part of that narrative, where a lot of our forefathers and foremothers, moved from the southern states to the Midwest, some of the factory towns, in order to get employment and get away from the acute racism, the lynching, and all those things that were happening in the South. So just a lot of family, a lot of friends, a lot of loved ones in the Midwest and Chicago. But of course, as any big city does, it does have its challenges. And so we definitely will keep our fingers crossed. And whomever becomes the next mayor of that great city that I love to go to, great food town, great architecture.
Oh, yes, great food. Great. I'm a food addict, so I would
Exactly.
love to go there just for the hot dogs and the pizza. And in fact, we're looking at taking a train trip this summer for vacation,
Hmm.
which starts in Chicago.
Hmm.
And I've already been warned to just stay in the downtown area, don't leave, especially if you don't know the area. Don't venture out anywhere. So stay in the downtown area and you'll be okay. So
Well,
we're
Jimmy, it's interesting that you say that, and I'm not saying that there's no validity to that, but I talk to a lot of people, especially folks who are coming from different parts of the country to Dallas, and you know what they tell them? Go to the north. You got to go to Frisco. You got to prosper. You got to go to Plano.
yes, that's
Go
the
near
general message.
downtown. Don't go south of downtown. That's where all the criminals and all that other kind of stuff. And Jimmy, we're talking about folks who grew up from that south part of town, and we know that's a bunch of propaganda.
True. That
But
is
that's
true,
how they're
Tom.
steering to. That's how they're steering the wealth to certain areas of the city.
Unfortunately, I mean, I know Dallas. I was born in Dallas, so I can maneuver and navigate in and out of Dallas okay. I don't know Chicago. I don't know the culture there, the people there. So when we go, we're only gonna go be there for a day. Go the day before the train leaves. But trust me, we'll stick in the downtown area, eat some pizza, have a hot dog, maybe try some beer, and then get out of town. So with that being said, Tom, what is our next story? Let's hopefully
All right.
change the speed up a little bit. Do we have something a little more lighter on the to talk about, or
We have a couple of more items
we're
lined up.
gonna be
We
drenched in
also
blood, guts, and tears the whole show?
we also want to welcome back our good friend, our brother Asar Kegalan. We want to thank you for supporting us as well. We've got a lot of great supporters coming in tonight, so we want to thank you all for joining us again. Hit that like button if you haven't done so. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and we will
And the
now.
notification button, Tom, so you'll be notified when we have new shows. And then also spread the word. Invite a friend to come join. If you're watching tonight, bring a friend with you.
Good deal. Good deal. All right, Jimmy, this is something I wouldn't call it light, but it's something that if you don't know, you need to know. The family, the daughters, two of the daughters of Malcolm X, one of my greatest heroes and probably one of the greatest intellectuals and fighters for freedom, not just in this country or in the world, are actually filing a suit against the New York Police Department, the CIA, and the FBI in the sum of $100 million, accusing them of playing a role directly or indirectly to his assassination in 1965. So,
Well,
Alisa,
Tom, we know the government played a role. Um,
exactly. And the key here, Jimmy, is that so the men who were ultimately sent to prison for his death, I think at least two of them were recently exonerated because of some dubious circumstances as it
right.
pertains to the case. And so they are now free. And so on the anniversary this year of his assassination, I think not that they didn't know, but now with these recent things, these recent issues where I think at least two of the guys who were in prison are now free. The question then becomes, where is the truth? I mean, and we're talking about concealing evidence potentially, or allegations of them concealing evidence in some way or another that led to the death of this great freedom leader and advocate for the rights of all people, not just in the United States, for the world. And so they are filing a $100 million lawsuit saying, you know what, we need some answers and we need the truth.
Well, Tom, I wish them luck in that, and I hope from the discovery that they're able to get some answers. But I'm very doubtful, because during that time, the period during the '60s, when they assassinated people, they generally cleaned up all the loose threads of all that were involved. Because a lot of those assassinations, the truth has never come out. From Martin Luther King to Malcolm X, to Robert
Fred,
and John Kennedy. So
Fred
um,
Hampton during that period of time
yes.
in Chicago.
So and the government had a hand, Tom, I believe, in all of those assassinations. Um, maybe I'm not saying they were there to plan it, but they certainly knew these things were taking place, did nothing to stop them, may have encouraged it by looking the other way, to because this is a result they ultimately wanted in the end. But yeah, all those loose ends have been so tied up that it's hard to even distinguish now. So many conspiracy theories have been thrown out there to muddy the water, but hopefully that during this discovery process for this lawsuit, maybe something can be gained. Maybe there's some files that can be accessed that will reveal a little bit of the truth. But like I said, I'm very doubtful because the one thing, in addition to planning these assassinations and allowing them to happen, they were very good at keep cleaning the assassinations up and cleaning their trails up afterwards. Everyone who knew anything is gone.
Yes, absolutely, Jimmy. So we definitely hope them the best of luck.
Yes.
As a family, when you have no closure to the death of your father, to the death of any loved one, for that matter, Jimmy, but when you know that someone is sweeping all the evidence and the truth, underneath the rug, Jimmy, you never can really have peace of mind because you never can truly have closure to what truly happened, regardless of how bad the circumstances may be.
And even today, Tom, the assassination of your character and of your reputation. I mean, the assassination may not come from a bullet anymore, but it would certainly come from your reputation, your name. They have ways of destroying you now, the cancer culture. If you get out of line, you say the wrong thing, or you disrupt the current process, or you're perceived to be a threat to the current process.
Good deal, Jimmy. So we will now move on to something a little bit lighter. Thanks again. The Bowman Hyde Park area is beautiful. Yes, it is. I have been there multiple times before. And I think we were talking about different areas of town where they just steer, corporations steer folks to a certain area and grow their wealth. A. Brown, so very true. Uber part-time. And deaf, the word is if you don't want to get robbed, stay away from South Dallas. When we know there are some very, very nice areas in South Dallas. Let's
Yes,
get
there are.
100, Jimmy. If it was that, if we're talking South Dallas, which I know you grew up in South Dallas, if it was
Yes.
that bad, why is it being gentrified if it was that
Well,
bad?
Tom, Dallas is run out of land, and let's face it. When when you're looking to develop wealth, you always want to buy low, sell high. So
Correct.
where's the cheapest land? Hmm, Down south.
Yeah, it is, Jimmy. It is, Jimmy. So let's keep it moving, folks. Let's
Keep
keep
it
it moving.
moving.
All right, Jimmy. Let's kind of have something a little bit fun and light. I don't think we've done this in a long time, Jimmy, but there are a couple of movies that are out that have two
I'm a big
pretty
movie guy, Tom.
two up and coming actors. First, we're going to talk about Ant-Man, which I believe came out a couple of weekends ago, and then we would talk about Creed, which I believe Creed 3. I'm sorry, which I believe
Yes.
is coming out this weekend. So Ant-Man, this is the third, I believe, in that series, Jimmy.
And I haven't watched either one, but I did watch the first Ant-Man and the second one with the Wasp lady. And I think I saw the first Creed movie. I haven't seen the second one. They've been playing both of them leading up to the movie release. So
Let's talk Ant-Man first. Now, I've seen the first one, Jimmy. I didn't see the second one, and I don't think I saw the second one because I can't say that I was extremely crazy about the first one. The reason that I am interested in Ant-Man 3, Quantumania, is because of Jonathan Majors. He is an up-and-coming actor, pretty doggone brilliant in practically every film that I've seen him in. He is going to be the villain in this movie. He is going to be Emperor Kang, and he is going to be the villain in this movie, who Ant-Man and the Wasp obviously will be pitting themselves up against.
okay.
And so I can't say this. I have not seen it yet, Jimmy, but I'm pretty sure I will see it relatively soon and can hopefully provide some feedback after this. But they actually, I think Ant-Man and the Wasp, they get pulled into this. I don't know that I want to call it a somewhat virtual reality, but in a completely different space, Jimmy. And I'm just waiting to see how Jonathan Majors handles this, because usually when you see brothers in roles like this, they're of a different sort. But this guy is actually brilliant, literally, in this film, because he actually creates this whole quantum mania reality, and he sucks them into this environment, Jimmy. And so it seems to be a pretty heady role.
Well, I'm definitely going to watch it, Tom, but I'm going to wait till it's streamed.
Okay.
I don't get out of the house much, and and I used to love going to theaters and watching movies on the big screen. Now I'm more of a homebody, so I love watching it on my big screen here at home. But I'm definitely going to watch both movies when they come to a streaming service.
Gotcha. And Creed 3. So you said you watched the first one, or the first one and the second
No, the
Creed?
first one. I know the second one is playing also, um, and so I do plan on watching it. But yes, I did watch the first one.
Gotcha. So I watched the first one and the second one, Jimmy. Actually, both of them were pretty good.
Very good.
After so many of the Rocky films, I really didn't know if I was going to really enjoy it. But Michael B. Jordan is in this one, and he usually selects pretty good movies, and both of these were actually pretty good. They were very entertaining films. Jonathan Majors is also going to be in this film, kind of the anti-hero. From my understanding, the plot. Both of them kind of grew up as young boys
Hmm.
in boxing, and I think it looks like Major's character actually had to end up doing some time. And Michael B. Jordan, who plays Creed, or the Apollo Creed's son, ends up obviously winning a championship, making good on his life. And so, from my understanding, the character that Majors plays comes back, and he's making up for lost time, and he's not taking any prisoners. And so I think they go head to head in this film. And these are two pretty intelligent, very charismatic, strong, buff guys who have a
Hmm.
little bit more than brawn. They have intelligence too. And I'm thinking this might be a pretty entertaining film, Jimmy.
Yes, Tom, it is. So when both have a personal reason to do something, they're driven by not just for money, not for fame or success, but they're driven for
Legacy.
personal reasons. It makes for a much better storyline. So it's something that you can almost relate to. So it's almost like Clubber Lane in the
Yes.
Rocky movies. So
Yep. And this, Jimmy, from my understanding, is the ninth installment of the Rocky film series, starting with the very first Rocky. This is the
oh,
third.
really? Okay.
This is the third Creed film, and so there were 6 Rockies. I knew it was somewhere close to that, but there were 6 Rockies.
I
And
believe you're right.
this is also the first one where the Rocky Balboa personality will not be in this film for the very first time.
Oh,
So
he's not coaching, he's not managing the.
correct, correct.
Okay.
Sylvester Stallone is producing the film, but the Rocky Balboa personality will not be in this film. It will be centering around Adonis Creed, which of course is Michael B. Jordan. So this one, I believe, actually comes out nationally this Friday.
It's going
And
to be a blockbuster, so get your tickets early, get online. I believe they're making you pick seats now when you go buy the tickets at the theater. So get you a good seat in the middle.
yeah, yeah,
I like to get one perfectly centered time on the screen.
right. And Jimmy, I was talk about this all the time. There are so many talented Black actors and actresses, and there are so few strong roles for the plethora of talent that we have in the market. It seems like Hollywood, unfortunately, only has room for maybe 1 or 2 premier actors
That's it, Tom.
within our community. And,
At any given time, just one or two, just a handful,
and
a few.
I don't know if these guys are going to be filling a void since Will Smith is having to sit down for a while, Jimmy. But I guess somebody has to fill that void, and so they only have maybe 1 or 2 men or 1 or 2 women who fill the void for the premier talent. And I guess it's unfortunate, Jimmy, because when you consider, or when I consider, the number of untold stories within our community, within our nation, within our world that have yet to be told, Jimmy. I think there's enough space for everybody, Jimmy, but when you look at the business of Hollywood and filmmaking, when you look at the logistics, unfortunately, we could probably have at least one film come out at least every other month, having to do with our community, our culture, our stories, Jimmy. But we've
But
got.
Tom, it's starting to change though. We're starting to see more production on the social media because that's one of the cheapest places to produce a film, especially a short film. But we're starting to see more of our people get into sitcoms and making movies. So I think we'll slowly start to see that change. In time, we are 12.5, 13% of the population where we buy over 50% of the movie tickets. We need to have more representation in that space because we contribute greatly to Hollywood. So I just wish there were more Black film companies, more Black writers and actors. We can produce our own stories. And of course, we covered this last week on our show with the English actor Elber. What's his name? That opened up a studio in Ghana.
Oh, Idris Elba.
Yeah. So if we get more of that activity time and more of us get into that industry, I think you're gonna see more and more, hopefully more and more Black produced films from Black production companies. So we can't leave it up to Hollywood to tell our story and to employ our people. We can certainly hold them accountable to serve us in a way that that's commensurate with the money that we spend. But ultimately, Tom, we're going to have to do this ourselves. Like anything else, we gotta be the curators of the content, not just the buyers of the content.
You're right, Jimmy. And a large part of that we have to take ownership of. And when I say that, I say
Yes,
that to mean that 13% of the population, close to, if not close to 50% of the economics of the motion picture industry. And we don't leverage that. We don't
we
use that
don't.
to our advantage to say, until we have more of our stories, more of our culture in a constructive, not all boys in the hood, not all thug love characterizations, of our story, what we're just going to withdraw, our contribution to this industry. And it's not until we do that in the entertainment industry, whether we're talking about film, whether we're talking about sports, whether we're talking about other areas where we are literally holding up industries, but not holding them accountable
Correct.
for what we feel is in our best interest. And that's the point, in our best interest, Jimmy. That's where our forefathers, our grandparents and great grandparents, I believe, did a much better job. Again, if you can have a boycott in Montgomery, Alabama, where you are literally walking miles to your job every day and saying, we're not going to ride your bus until I can until I can sit anywhere on this bus and I can. And I'm willing to do that for not a month, but a year, however long it takes until our interests are served, Jimmy.
All right.
They understood that. We don't, and we've got to do a better job of leveraging that.
That is true, Tom. I can't say it any better.
All right, Jimmy. Well, that's our 2 cents on Ant-Man and or
Go see
Creed.
both of them.
But I did get a heads up from a friend of mine who's watching Creed, who has watched at least part of Creed 3. They said it is a very good movie and a must see.
Okay.
All right, Jimmy. So I think you now have a special treat for our audience and for our
Do
guests.
we we want to go with the cultural story, Tom, or do we want to move on to Kobe Bryant's wife?
Thank you very much. That is, I think, the last story that I had, and I thanking you for remembering that. For those of you who are not aware, Vanessa Bryant actually filed a suit and won in the federal and in LA County, and she has been awarded a total sum of just under $29 million.
Wow.
And most recently, she won a lawsuit in LA County. This, of course, has to do with the untimely and unfortunate death of the great late Kobe Bryant and his daughter, their daughter, Gianna Bryant, and several others in a helicopter crash. Well,
Crash.
she has won about $15 million in LA County because some of the first responders, folks who were employees of LA County, I believe that might include the fire department and may have included some of the police department. Don't quote me on that for sure. Took pictures, pretty graphic pictures of not just the crash scene, but of some of the people who died, including her loved ones and family members, and unfortunately showed that in a public setting. And she filed a lawsuit, and so this has been going on for a couple of years now. Jimmy, she's won about $14 million in a federal lawsuit, and now it looks like she's getting $15 million from LA
Well, you know
County.
what, Tom? Congratulations to her for doing this. I believe you said there was another family, another lady
Yeah,
involved
yeah,
also
Christopher.
who
There
got
was
an
a
equal.
there was a co-plaintiff, Christopher Chester, whose wife and daughter who died, and they were both, co-plaintiffs in this lawsuit. And I believe that Mr. Chester won about $15 million as well in this lawsuit
So,
against.
Tom, when our government workers do not follow the rules, we have to hold them accountable. So, being willing to take them to court, it's not easy suing the government, especially the federal government. But to take them on and to make them pay when they violate the rules is what we need to do more of if we expect the rules to be followed. And I'm sure that this is not the first time that this has been done, but hopefully it's the last time that it's done, especially in that area where the first responders, the cops, the fire department do not respect the privacy. And Tom, that's just outright disrespectful to the surviving members when you violate their privacy that way. You have no idea whether they want their loved ones and their family members displayed all over social media, have their
And,
bodies mangled up and
and
material chopped up and
that is the key, Jimmy. And if you imagine this, you don't have to be as famous as the Bryants
right. It can be anybody.
to have to deal with the emotional drama and stress of having to relive the pain of your loved one, and especially dying. I mean, dying under any circumstances, but especially under circumstances like that, being shown on social media. I mean, once that gets out, Jimmy, it is out.
Oh, you can't take it back, Tom.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
I mean
so
it's out there forever.
having to live with this threat for the rest of your life, that you're going to see pictures and have to relive that pain and anguish all over again because of somebody wanting to take close-up pictures of your loved ones who died in a horrendous accident and were burned to death.
Well, I'm glad to see that these plaintiffs have won their lawsuits. Hopefully, it encourages the county um, to take stronger actions with their training and establishing what the rules are so that it doesn't happen again.
And Jimmy, ultimately, when it comes down to money, that's where
oh yeah, that's what you get the attention.
That's where you get their attention. And there's only some folks you can't get their attention except when you hit their pocketbook.
So okay, so we're gonna wrap up, and we'll have a few minutes left, Tom, to talk about the next segment after it's done. I'm gonna qualify by saying, guys, I went to school in New Orleans, and of course, when I was there, I went to Mardi Gras, and the first one was very exciting. I mean, I enjoyed it. I had a bag full of beads and doubloons, and of course, after Mardi Gras, I didn't know what to do with it. Like, okay, what do you do with this? Try to give it away, but everybody else had a bag also of this junk. But after that, it wasn't. After that time, I discovered something that I thought was the greatest secret of New Orleans. It was something called Second Line Sunday. I mean, I seen people doing the second line dance. I had some friends in college in the dorm who could second line. I tried to get them, one of my suite mates, to teach me. And he basically told me, look, if you really want to learn the second line, you have to go to Second Line Sunday. Of course, I didn't know what Second Line Sunday was. A couple of weeks after that, we actually went to one time, and I fell so in love with Second Line Sunday. I really had no interest in Mardi Gras again. But I did fall in love with Second Line Sunday. In fact, I spent an entire summer catching as many as possible. I didn't even go home that summer. I stayed in the dorm, and I went to as many of these things as possible. But I just want to share the experience because it's not just entertaining time. If you actually get a chance to go to one, it's actually a spiritual movement to be around that many Black people having a good time. You can't help but let it be infected. So here we go.
And so, Jim, I think this is going to close out our show, correct?
Yes, we'll have a few minutes afterwards to wrap up.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah! Get that fucking money! Call man with the that one all day! Two shots, $5, whatever you drink. Liquor, Corona, Midnight Superfly. 2 shots, $5, whatever you drink. Let's go. 2019, nigga.
April 14th, meet me in the Big Draw at the historic Carver Theater, old and new South, way downtown.
Just different out here, man. It's the greatest place in the world. There's nowhere like it.
I caught the Nola vibe. We caught the Nola vibe.
Say, Five, what we doing when they let us hit the street? Everything, Nola vibe. Everything.
Religion for us, man. It's church.
What awesome dog you food, dude.
Everybody out here. You want to find out where your kids at, your mama, everybody out here. So if the kids at home, your mama out here. Keep it real, keep it real.
It's a vibe, a NOLA vibe.
All right, Tom,
All
we're
right.
back. So
And
what
that
you
was a
think?
very creative rendition of "Give Me the Night" by the great George Benson.
Oh yes, but that sort of give you a little bit of the taste of what a Second Line Sunday is about, especially when you get multiple bands that come together. Like I said, all these bands have their following. So when they go out and play in March, they'll have their people who are loyal to them who will follow along. So you get a lot of those small ones. But when multiple bands come together, I mean, it's the greatest free show on earth, Tom. And like I said, it's a very spiritual thing because to be around that many black people having a good time, just marching, dancing in the street, and it's a good exercise because they're moving.
Very good exercise, Jimmy. And it's amazing to me because when I watch, these brothers and sisters in New Orleans and expressing themselves through creative expression, and then you go back to the motherland and the continent,
That's who we are, Tom. We're
and
communal people.
it's amazing. The exact same
Yes.
thing with a few twists here and there, but it's just amazing how you see our people on two parts of the continent or the globe, nowhere connected other than through our spirit and through our genetic
Correct.
code, and literally expressing themselves the same way without knowing it. It's amazing.
Well, the spirit of God is in us, Tom. I keep saying that we're God's people. So that's why these things are radiated and move when other people are around us. Like I said, they sense there's something special about black people, the way we play sports, the way we walk, the way we dance, our music, our food, our entire culture. And so we have to recognize that, Tom, that we are special people and not let anyone degrade us or relegate us to second, third, fourth class citizenship anywhere in the world. We are
Gotcha.
the greatest people on this planet.
Yes. And Jimmy, that about wraps up our show for this evening. I want to thank you for bringing that video on there. And we want to thank everyone who has joined us tonight for being a part of our show and what we are bringing to the world. And we will see you next Wednesday, Jimmy, because if it is Wednesday night,
As black men speak.
good evening, everyone.